2 seconds, and the healthy became sick, and the sick believed in a miraculous cure. One wrong click destroyed lives, a career, and an entire healthcare system. The medical mix-up. July in Tulsa was sticky and merciless. The air hung like a heavy sheet, clinging to the skin. Light pushed through the dirty windows of the lab cubicle, settling on glass dusted with red powder carried north by the wind. From overheating transformers, the radio in the next room kept breaking into static. We asked residents to reduce air conditioning use, record temperatures across the county, then crackling silence again. Kate sat at her computer, facing a long list of names, numbers, and dates. The monitor flickered as if it, too, were tired. On the desk stood a mug of cold coffee, a murky film on top. For her, it was a barometer of the day. If the coffee had cooled, she'd stayed too long. On the wall, a July calendar with a cat. The striped animals stared upward as if reproaching her for every wrong step. A lab assistant appeared at the door with a stack of printouts. He whispered, "The printer's baking letters again." Kate looked up. Baking? Like waffles, hot and sticky. She nodded, not understanding, and turned back to the screen. Sounds of the hallway merged into a drone. Someone dropped a tray of tools. A door slammed. A phone beeped. She lost focus for a second. Her fingers slipped a line. She entered the data for the wrong patient. Now, George Hansen, a diabetic of 20 years, appeared healthy in the system, and Frank Miller, a man with no complaints, suddenly carried the diagnosis type 2 diabetes. Her heart tightened. She noticed the mistake and froze. On the desk lay a folder with her promotion refusal. "Your application has been denied." The paperclip had fallen, clinking on the tile like a small verdict. If she told the doctor, discipline. If she stayed silent, blame the glitch. Not the end of the world, just numbers. Kate closed the program window, clicked the mouse, and straightened. She took a sip of cold coffee, glanced at the cat on the calendar. The clinic bustled on. Patients argued at reception. Someone complained about the AC. Outside, the world lived on schedule, and her single wrong click had already begun to break it. George Hansen, 56, had lived with diabetes, like with an alarm clock. Everything on schedule. Injection before breakfast, pill after dinner, 20 years in a row. His joy, old radios scavenged at flea markets. 24 sat in his living room, each wheezing in its own way. Some caught distant AM frequencies, others only hissed. George checked their sound every morning. At the clinic, the doctor said too cheerfully, "Your results are normal. No signs of diabetes. Congratulations! Unless the system's joking today." The doctor's smile looked pasted on, but the screen glowed with numbers, and George believed. At home, he turned on a radio, static mixed with echoes of country music. He called his daughter. "Hear this? I'm healthy, like a new radio with no interference." "Dad, vinyl still sounds cleaner. Radio is just noise. Records have depth." "Noise is life," he said, and laughed with her. On the stairs, a neighbor intercepted him with a box of donuts. "Sweet sugar, George," the man grinned. "Eat while life is sweet." George took 3 at once, for the first time in years. Meanwhile, Frank Miller, 38, left the same clinic pale. The paper with his diagnosis trembled in his hands. At the pharmacy, he laid boxes of syringes on the counter, then carefully aligned them with a square. The pharmacist muttered without looking up, Gas prices are up again. Crazy. Frank only nodded, as if the words passed through him. He packed the kits neatly into his bag. Driving home, the world felt foreign. In the mirror, he gave himself the first shot. Sweat streamed down his temples, his hand shook. He lined up the syringes like soldiers, hiding chocolate bars as if they were dangerous ammunition. That night, one man celebrated a miraculous healing, while another mourned health that had never been taken away. Both were already prisoners of a stranger's second of inattention. Kate sat in the stuffy office, the lamp flickering as if to mock her. On the wall, the calendar now showed August. A ginger cat stared too seriously for a postcard. Beside her, the mug of unfinished cold coffee and a stack of papers. Among them, the promotion refusal, dryly worded. Your application has been denied. Patient records blinked on the screen. Kate moved the cursor, sewing a new story. Test dates shifted, names stitched to others' symptoms, signatures dropped in automatically. She typed, "Patient reports improvement." This isn't lying, it's straightening the curve. I'm not the enemy, I'm saving the clinic. Her fingers trembled. Then autocorrect spat out, "Patient deceased, but satisfied." She froze, erased it, but laughter tore nervously from her chest. A sign. Even the machine mocked her. Inside voices argued. Admit the error, they'll find it anyway. No, not my fault. Patients are to blame. One stopped taking care, the other trusted the paper too much. I only fixed numbers. The door creaked. Dr. Harris entered, stooped, briefcase under one arm, a barometer under the other. He collected them and spoke in metaphors. You know, Kate, yesterday the barometer dropped. No storms forecast, but the dog howled. Instruments sometimes know more than predictions. Same here. Hansen's storm yesterday, clear skies today. Where do the clouds go? Our system's old, she said too quickly. Fields jump on their own. And my signature? Harris nodded at the screen. Dew doesn't fall without morning, and I don't remember that morning. Program glitch, she muttered, palms cold. The lawyer cut in. Likely a software update error. It happens. We can record it that way. Kate exhaled. There it was. Blame IT. But the screen flickered. The system rolled back itself. Metadata surfaced. Login, Kate M. Time of edits, list of changes. Each line like a verdict. Harris gave her a long look. The barometer didn't lie. The storm came. Kate sat silent. Inside still echoed, it's not me. It's the city, the heat, the system. Noon in Tulsa was suffocating. In the supermarket, the AC rattled uselessly, blowing hot air like a hairdryer. The aisles smelled of cornbread, sweat, dampness. George pushed a cart stuffed with soda, pies, and ice cream. At the donut shelf, he whispered, "Freedom is sweet," and grabbed another box. Moments later, his legs buckled, his vision clouded. He collapsed, bringing down a cereal display. Shoppers screamed, but the cashier kept scanning groceries, muttering, "Ice went up again. Won't last till home anyway." A teenager filmed the fall, smirking, posting it on TikTok. Old man fainted at the discounts. Across town, Frank tried to drive. He injected insulin on schedule, but strength ebbed. His temples pounded, vision blurred. He blacked out, crashing into a roadside smokehouse. Thick smoke billowed. The owner, wiping his apron, calmly phoned his insurer. "Yeah, right into the pit. Tell me, natural smoke and emergency, same category or separate?" Police saw the smoke and assumed arson. They lifted Frank from the ground. "Why'd you do it?" He could only whisper, "I'm sick." Ambulance sirens filled the air. Paramedics exchanged quick lines. "Pressure dropping. At least he doesn't smoke. Saves on cigarettes." They paused, looked at each other, continued in silence. By evening, ER lines converged. George wheeled in on a stretcher, Frank in a chair. Their families waited in the same hallway. George's daughter adjusted his blanket. Frank's wife held a water bottle. Their eyes met for a second. Both asked silently, "Why us?" But no answer came. Tragedy stopped being personal. It became part of the city's absurd theater. The commission met in a room with a long plastic table and a crooked "Quality First" poster. Outside, a storm rumbled, wind blowing red dust inside. It settled on papers like a mark. One member chewed nicotine gum so loudly it sounded to Kate like a guillotine. Another stammered through the rules. Suspend staff rights in case of, data damage?" "Forgery," the lawyer supplied dryly. Dr. Harris spoke gently, as if about the weather. "My barometer dropped at home. No storm forecast, but the dog howled. I wonder, instruments sometimes know more than we do. Hansen storm yesterday, clear today. Where did the clouds go, Kate?" She forced a smile. "It's the system's old. Fields jump." Inside her voice said, "Not my fault." Hansen rejoiced too much, Frank panicked too fast. I only corrected numbers. "And my signature?" Harris pressed. "Like dew. If it's there, morning happened, and I don't recall that morning. Maybe the program filled it in. Random glitch." Not a glitch. The city, the heat, exhaustion. Everyone's fault but mine, she thought. The lawyer broke in. "Likely an update error. We can call it technical to avoid scandal." Kate's breathing steadied. "Yes, all on IT." But the screen flickered. Metadata opened itself. Login, Kate.m, times, edits. Each line a hammer blow. Harris stared at the screen, then at her. The barometer didn't lie. The storm came. Kate lowered her eyes. Inside still echoed. If doctors had looked closer, none of this wouldn't have happened. I only wanted to save the clinic. But out loud, she said nothing. Red dust fell on the papers like a sentence. The ICU smelled faintly of antiseptic and old plastic. On the nightstand hissed George's radio from home, catching fragments of stations, bits of country songs, fertilizer jingles, dry static. His daughter adjusted the antenna, speaking aloud as if into the ether. "Dad, that's a signal, so you're somewhere too." She leaned closer. "If the air isn't silent, neither are you." Only his breathing and the hiss answered. Meanwhile, Frank tried to adjust to life in another city. Doctor visits became torture. In the clinic hallway, smelling of dust and old linoleum, panic struck. His chest tightened, vision blackened. He slid to the floor, gasping. People walked past, pretending not to notice. A guard silently pushed a chair toward him, then stepped away. Frank sat, face in hands. One thought looped: no more doctors. Never again. Court cases multiplied. In a law office lobby, George's and Frank's families met for the first time. The air hung heavy. "You too from that clinic?" Frank's wife asked quietly. "Yes," George's daughter nodded, gripping her bag strap. "Ours is reversed. He's sick, but thought he was well. And yours?" "Well, but thought he was sick," the woman finished. Their eyes met with mute exhaustion, a wordless admission. Their lives were mirrors of the same mistake. At a press briefing, the clinic's lawyer tried to keep composure. Cameras flashed, journalists shouted. He spoke dryly of commission findings and new protocols. Then an insurer stood up. "We're terminating coverage. As of now, the clinic is out." The hall exploded. Flashes blinded, microphones lunged, voices overlapped. The lawyer froze, mouth open. News tickers already read, "System collapse, patients abandoned." Outside, the heat pressed on. People passed the building with folders in hand, unaware their own stories could be tomorrow's tragedy. The clinic was closed quietly, cut from city life. On the facade remained a blank rectangle where the sign had been. Sticky glue stains stretched like scars. Doors boarded with plywood, sealed with fat, sealed stamps. Through the windows lay empty halls, overturned chairs, stacks of forgotten magazines, a thermometer on the floor, a frozen set. Across the street, the pharmacy signs still flickered. The letter A blinked erratically, turning the word into chaos. It mocked the dead silence opposite. Kate sat at her kitchen table. Before her, a stack of papers, commission ruling, license revoked, court summons. Crumpled newspaper clippings with her photo still showed headlines, "Nurse hid fatal error." On the wall, the calendar August crossed out with red X's, the cat staring straight at her. She flipped to September, blank, white. She stared, the pause heavy as stone. The radio droned, "Doctor shortage in the county. Patients travel miles. Heat breaks records. Authorities advise keeping calm." The phrase "keeping calm" sounded cruelly ironic. Downtown, among pawned toasters and guitars with no strings, the folder of test results lay in a pawn shop window. A closed sign hung on the glass. The pages had yellowed, curled from the sun. From outside, just useless papers, forgotten in junk. People walked by without pause. If it were a film, the camera would linger on that folder, an ordinary document that destroyed a whole healthcare system, now worthless. 2 seconds of inattention had turned a workplace into ruins, a city into a desert without doctors, and no one hurried to fix the broken system.